Hello everyone. I hope everyone had an excellent week. So it turns out the seat of ASHTON has gone to Labor. It has been in the hands of the Liberals for just on 100 years, according to Peter Credlin. I got to hear some of her musings on this. She seems rather unhappy, and can't say that I feel anything other than elated, especially when I hear the Liberals, crying about, how they're entitled to just get seats. So this week was interesting. Me personally, I just got my 5th shot for COVID. Now, why I did it? Well, clearly I'm not exactly a little woman. And this puts me at risk for things like a fatty liver and a whole bunch of other things. So I am what they call a comorbidity. So if you're a comorbidity, that means like you have something like a breathing issue or a heart issue or got an issue with alcohol or bad foods, like what's in my case. You will find absolutely you have a comorbidity. I have a couple. I don't just have like this weird fatty liver. I have like issues with breathing. So it's one of the reasons I don't smoke is because I love the idea of breathing. If you've ever had that feeling like there's no air in your lungs, no matter how many times you try and breathe back, you'll know breathing is one of the greatest things that you can do. And it's remarkable when you don't have that all the time, how much you will crave fresh air. And that's one of the reasons I did what I did. Moving right along. So on tonight's show, we're going to talk about the losing of ASHTON from the Liberals over to ALP. Dutton's appearance on Insiders. This was a stellar, and I've got some amazing couple of minute clips to go through. The LNP is accusing ALP of squatting in seats that they won. Yeah, their born to rule mentality sort of is this overwhelming thing where they're like, they clearly didn't win it. They're just squatting in it. It's a bit weird. The Daily Telegraph is claiming not to know Chris Minns. Then we're going to talk about the SA Voice to Parliament turnout, the backflip on MORIA deeming, Stuart Roberts' Parliamentary Committee lobby, GATH Ward won despite him facing actual criminal charges, and in light of him winning that seat and not being able to actually sit in Parliament, this is going to pose as a multi-leveled issue. So winning the seat won't necessarily mean representing in that seat. So we're going to have to see how that one pans out. Was justice perverted for Brittnay Higgins? I would say yes. I'm going to talk about that soon. Mark Latham, the man who says the most vilest things. I'm not going to repeat what he said, but there is something disturbing that he did say that we're going to talk about. Corruption watchdog setup. So now that the NACCUSE has been set up, we're going to talk about what that's going to look like, who's running it, and exactly what some of the parameters will be. The gathering of hate. So it turns out Tamworth held an event and of course they held it there. You know, it's not racist at all. Oh, geez. Okay, is the UK the most corrupt? Now, I'm not going to speculate which country is the most corrupt, but for progressive nations, one thing that you don't want is a look of impropriety. And if that's not just impropriety, being bought while being a member of the House of the Lords, you know, I really, really want to say that this is not something that happens, but money talks and people walk and do silly things for it. Even when they've already got more money than what they possibly could ever spend in their lifetime, they're still going to do the stupid thing for the stupid money. You know, I mean, I'm a living moment to that. I mow lawns, I look after children. I mean, I do a little bit of everything. I'll come and clean the house. I will do most things that most people are like, oh, why would you do that? I have in my time done some of the most odd jobs that I thought, this is interesting. I never saw myself doing. But now that I'm at this point, you know, jobs come and go. Okay, so let's start off. The LNP losing ASHTON. Now, there is a funny little video clip that I managed to come across. It's not really a video clip, but how I think the LNP is taking it. I don't know who made it, but I bloody well love it. Check this out. There are some bloody creative people on Twitter. Never underestimate the power of Twitter. Okay, so here we go. Here's how I think it would be going in the Liberal Party room right now after the election in ASHTON. Now, that being 100 years they've held that seat, and it has never really been a red seat at all. One would have to assume this isn't going to play out well for Peter Dutton, which is why we're going to talk about, is he viable to keep on? Okay, so now that we've been through that, we're going to talk about one of the candidates. Turns out one of the candidates, Rashina Campbell, had a joke one time on Sky News. James Campbell, who is also a Herald Sun journalist, asked to stay off air for 4 weeks in wake of colourful comments. Turns out the Herald Sun and Sky reporter told Bridget McKenzie that she should take a bottle of whiskey and a revolver and shoot herself amid Sporting Green's controversy. James Campbell, a senior journalist that regularly makes comments, made the comments on Sky. And it's gone a long way to... I don't know why he would make such a horrendous comment. And he said he hopes that she does the right thing, takes a bottle of whiskey and a revolver into the next room and practices shooting herself, which is horrendous. That's the worst thing someone can say to someone, to harm another human. Or to harm themselves even, you know, that... I don't know where they get this stuff from, but they do. Okay. Sources said following the program, Campbell was asked by Sky News, where he is an unpaid contributor, to stay off air for 4 weeks, making the offensive remarks. He remains on the Herald Sun as a national political editor. Yeah, that's the husband of that candidate. That's what sort of people we're dealing with. that's over the sports rorts things when Bridget McKenzie was forced to step down. So that didn't go so well. So there's that. Okay. Dutton's made an appearance on Insiders today. As always, Twitter likes to give you the best bits. But for those of you who don't have Twitter and don't have time to scour the internet for those particular bits, I'm going to bring them here for you. So sit back and enjoy the show. Okay, hold on. Okay. Oh, this is not going the way I planned. Okay, is it on it too? Okay. Here we go. So, when pressed for an answer on why the Liberal brand of Victoria stinks, Daniel Andrews is ruthless, apparently. Spud comes to the realisation that it's scarier to be a Liberal in Melbourne than someone going out to dinner. Listen to this.
But you keep going backwards. So I'm just asking why.
Well, this is what we need to assess, and we need to understand.
You don't know?
Well, we're 10 months into this period of opposition. So the claims that we should have policies out there and announced. I mean, you're a professional in this business. No opposition's releasing every policy for the next election.
I'm not suggesting that. I'm just asking whether you have an understanding as to why you've gone backwards so far.
Our brand has suffered terribly in Victoria.
Why?
Well, people haven't voted for us at a state level. In the last 24 years, 21 of those years they voted for Labor.
So why is that? You must have some idea.
Well, that's what we need to assess.
You don't know?
I think we need to do the analysis of ASHTON, have an understanding of what people were motivated by, what caused them to vote Labor for the first time. I mean, for both
major
major
problem,
parties.
Though, if you're unable to put your finger on why the Liberals are in such trouble in Victoria.
Well, David, I mean, Labor spent the last 5 weeks throwing mud at us, at Rashina Campbell, at me, at the Liberal brand. Well, I mean, they are effective campaigners.
I love the fact that David Spears, so it's Labor's fault. Because this was like a typical excuse for the Liberal Party. Oh, yeah, so it's Labor's fault. You know, I love that David Spears did it, but make no mistake, David Spears is a Liberal through and through and just wants them to get better.
And Daniel Andrews is ruthless.
Oh, Daniel Andrews is ruthless, apparently, if you take him at his word. So then Dutton makes up a ridiculous claim that Labor went against the Solicitor General's advice, which is, yeah, he has this ability of just making stuff up as he goes along. If you don't know what Dutton's like, you get a very quick introduction to it when you hear him talk about an issue on Manus Island. And he was asked about a small child that was apparently harmed. Barry Cassidy quickly takes him to task and says, well, no, none of the details fit the real issues of what happened, and you're just making stuff up, essentially. And Dutton essentially says, well, I was there, you know, we're getting the reports. So tries to staunch him on that, like he's the one with the intelligence kind of thing. They're like, no, well, video cameras actually caught it and we've seen it, and it's not like that at all. So they will make up any excuse to be any kind of human. Continuing on with these sorts of clips. Whoop, I flipped onto the wrong one. Okay. Here we go.
Not been what the Prime Minister's
But
been able to
the point is there are
explain.
these real problems for the Voice to get on with. Isn't it a bit alarmist, a bit ridiculous even to say, oh, it's going to be, gumming up the works of the Reserve Bank or the Defence Force?
Well, David, this is the biggest change proposed to the Australian Constitution since Federation.
If Dutton has questions about the Voice, let's just quickly clear up a couple of things. One, he should have asked it of the intended body of that. Two, he could have gone to the Prime Minister and asked the appropriate questions. Just saying it to the media is not asking a question. And the place where you should do that, weirdly, he didn't. Question time. So Dutton wants to appear like he has genuine questions, but he doesn't. He's an idiot, basically.
And the Prime Minister can't answer the basic questions in relation to how it will apply, how it will work. And you can't out-legislate.
Prime Minister answered any and all questions that he had publicly. And even he's never presented one privately. He's just done this on the public front because, this is all a stunt to them. This isn't real. They're not doing realness. They're doing Mr. No politics. Just pretend like you're against everything. It doesn't matter how effective it will be for the public. They need to oppose everything. That's what they're doing.
Constitutional change. So if you're going to change the Constitution, you need to be assured that it's going to be for the best. It's not going to be another layer of bureaucracy that the voice.
Dutton has been made aware many times that this is not a third chamber of Parliament. It will not be some sort of overrunning of government. This is purely an advisory body. That's it. He's scared of an advisory body of Aboriginal voices. Why would an ex-police officer be afraid of being advised to something? Kind of would make sense why them dog canned foods were given to him on his last day of service as a copper, isn't it? Not very good at listening to people. That's what it tells me.
Voice will actually reflect the views of people on the ground so that you can get the sort of outcomes
would you back
you're
it?
talking
Would you
about.
back it if the words executive government were taken out?
Well, the government's been clear that they, and in fact, they've gone against the Solicitor General's advice on this issue, that they are
That's
going to
not
keep,
what they say, to be clear. To our viewers, they've said the Solicitor General supports where they've landed.
Yeah, see, and then he just flat out goes to lying and says, well, the Solicitor General's against it. Because Dutton can't have an honest moment. He gets caught out in real time in his lies, even with people that are very friendly interviewers. The Liberals didn't really go on there when there was like someone like Barry Cassidy on there. They repeatedly declined interviews on ABC. It's kind of funny that they get their fixture, like David Spears from Sky News, that they all seem happy to turn up now. One wouldn't want to think that they politically motivated the ABC or anything like they claimed the left was doing. No, that wouldn't be allowed to insinuate that thing at all. Ridiculous.
The Solicitor General and the Attorney General went into the committee with advice to take out executive government. They were overruled.
They deny that, Mr. Dutton. They deny that, Mr. Dutton.
Well,
I just need to be, straight with our viewers. They've denied that.
That's what happened, David.
How do you know?
Well, I have a better understanding, I suspect, than...
Were you in the room?
No, but I have a very clear understanding. I think some of your panellists and others have written on this with multiple sources out of the room, and it has been the...
Now he's going to go with multiple sources, never present one, never actually rocked up to this thing, even though he was heavily invited, and in fact, almost coercively to attend this kind of thing, so they could have a bipartisan view on this thing. But instead, Dutton didn't turn up, and neither did anyone from the National Party, because they're not interested in any real fixtures. They're only interested in playing politics. So like a whiny bitch that he is, he's going to, talk it down however he wants. He'll even make up what the committee has said. He doesn't care. What the Solicitor General said, he doesn't care. He just has to play it as if, he's always going to be right. It doesn't matter whether he turns up or not. He's an idiot. And then one of the things that an idiot will do is that when they make something up, they will make it sound even so ridiculous that the very, very liberal leaning presenter has to go, Yeah, no, that's not true, is it? It's not a good look.
Advice to the government consistently.
But regardless, if they took that wording out, you still may not back it, right?
Well, we'll have a look at the wording, but the government's been clear that they're not going to take it out, and that is a deal breaker for them. And the Prime Minister has sided with the committee over the advice of the Solicitor General.
So when will you make a call on this?
Well, in due course, and our party room will meet.
Of course, he has to slide in at that very end bit. Oh, of course, it goes against the Solicitor General's thing after being told that it clearly doesn't. But sure, he gets to slip it in there one more time. He's a liar, and he knows it.
Have a discussion about what is a very...
Any good journalist would be like, hey, that's not cool, man, that you know you're lying, you know. But Spearsy's like, well, you know, just go on with your talking point.
Substantial change.
You wouldn't stop the referendum going ahead, though, would you?
Well, David, we'll meet as a party room and we'll have a look at the option.
You wouldn't stop it from going ahead, would you? Yeah, he would. That's the whole point. They're not interested in closing the gap. They're not interested in anything positive. They're on about just maintaining their power. Like Friendly Geordie's recently exposed, they're not interested in governing for you. They're interested in having leather chairs underneath their asses to get around, you know, for free, you know, to be driven around. If they were all about representing you, they wouldn't throw out figures that they would never plan to commit to. They certainly wouldn't be doing this on the Voice to Parliament. It's repugnant, to say the least. Okay. The next one on him, which is just as infuriating, I don't know how David Spears sat there and just sort of let Peter Dutton lie through the whole thing on safeguard mechanisms to stop it passing on costs to consumers. Now, this is just another one of these repugnant things that they do to do with acting on climate change. And the Liberals will make it sound like doing anything at all, anything that could remotely help. Oh, no, it's all bad. You can't do anything to fix it. Why would you do that?
The cement industry is one such industry that I think is at real risk of leaving our shores. Now, we're not going to stop using cement.
Why do you say that? Because, you know, we've heard
because we've spoken very clearly with the industry, and
they're leaving,
that is the very clear.
They've told you they're going to go.
They have very grave concerns about the future of their sector. There are issues around steel. We have
because the Chief Executive of Manufacturing Australia says the way the safeguards mechanism changes have been designed means they won't have to pass on significant increases for steel, cement, aluminium, bricks. Are they telling you something different?
Well,
yeah. Are they telling you something different, Peter Dutton, than what they're telling the Prime Minister and the journalists? See, either they're lying or you're lying. Which one do you think's more credible? Fake tradie? I mean, they had a fake tradie pose as someone that's an actual tradie. They just lie. They're just going to find someone to fake it. If it wasn't for the Rolex watch, I reckon they would have pulled it off. They're idiots.
David, if you've got a company that has cost imposed on them, they're either going to take a cut to their bottom line, that is, that they're going to reduce their profit, or they're going to pass those costs on to consumers. Now, I think there are a lot of consumers out there at the moment who are trying to build a new house or renovate their existing house who understand that the cost of that building, the materials, the labour is through the roof.
It's just not what they're saying publicly.
Well, I can tell you where we've spoken to people, it causes us grave concern.
They're telling you something different, are they?
I think there are a lot of business leaders, frankly, in the country at the moment who are saying things differently in private than what they're saying publicly.
Why?
Because I think they're worried about social media. You guys all, you'll
so they're lying to the public.
I mean, David, you will race to Twitter after this interview, after Insiders, to see what your supporters have.
Yeah, no, now they're going to go, well, the people are lying, the advisory people are lying. Of course, everyone's lying but Peter Dutton. This is one interview, one, and it was enough rope to hang himself on for an eternity. But I'm going to show you one of the biggest lies they've done.
I can guarantee you I won't.
Really? Well, I'm pleased to hear it. But there are a lot of people who do, including in the corporate sector. And I think it's time for a lot of those leaders to stand up, because the fears of a gas disruption this winter or next summer are real.
And he's telling another lie. So let's look at one big lie that they've told before when it comes to this sort of stuff. In 2016, they had this guy. This guy is Andrew McRae. And he was fake. He got exposed. See this little watchy? Something small and insignificant, but it was enough. Listen to this little deception from a guy who's not even there.
The future of a world full of low.
It's amazing that they do this kind of thing, and yet they pretend like they're the honest people in the room. This guy was exposed pretty bloody quickly, so they know that they're liars.
Let me get this right. Mr. Shorten wants to go to war with my bank. He wants to go to war with our miners. Bill Shorten even wants to go to war with someone like me, who just wants to get ahead through an investment property. Well, I'll tell you what happens when you get a war going on the economy. People like me lose their jobs. So I reckon we should just see it through and stick with the...
So that guy there, he's outright lying. That's how they do it. They just hire a dude that will outright lie, pretend like he's in this industry. It's not part of anything. But they got him in a whole bunch of ads. It was these idiots, they don't even vet them properly. They find somebody that'll do it, and then they're like, hey, you know, we get to just do this stuff. It's like their war on electric utes. They're like, oh, no, that's going to ruin the weekend. And then you have the National Party running around going, oh, no, we were never against it. You've got to, the games that they're playing is wrong. Politics shouldn't be where they're just trying to beat the other guy. It should be trying to represent the people better. This is utterly repugnant that this is how the Liberal Party operates. Okay, so here's more of Peter Dutton miserably failing yet another showing. Spears suggests that Peter Dutton stands for much the same thing as Scott Morrison, led by the Liberal Party. Dutton insists there's nothing wrong with the Liberal Party as is. And this is the thing. They're going to go with the traditions of old and not improve, which means they're going to be in the opposition for a very long time. They're grotesque.
People, for example.
Can I ask you, what does the Peter Dutton-led Liberal Party stand for?
Well, we stand for aspiration. We stand for entrepreneurialism, so small businesses. We stand for national security, obviously. And
really, small businesses. Really? You know, you mean the small businesses that were closed in the 2020 lockdowns, and you handed out money to big businesses, not enough small businesses, and definitely not in time, and a lot of them closed. All the same small businesses that you help Coles and Woolies eviscerate, and yeah, well, they're left to sort of just wither away. He's lying.
And we always stand for cleaning up a Labor mess when we get back into government, so that people...
Oh, you can't help it. This Labor mess, he's lying. And that's a projection term that they always use. They always are the highest taxing governments that you'll ever face. It's just they sell off assets to make it look like they're not that bad at taxation. One of the biggest ones is the GST. He's a liar and a threat to the Australian people. They want to keep talking. They really want to keep talking after introducing the GST. I mean, really, repugnant, utterly repugnant.
So it's much
choices.
Much the same things as the Scott Morrison-led Liberal Party and
well,
others.
It goes back to the traditions of Menzies. And I grew up in the Liberal Party under John Howard. I was
Reaganomics.
assistant treasurer to Peter Costello.
The very failed Reaganomics, the trickle-down effect. They're going to piss money onto you. No, they're not. They're truly not. Anyone who is underneath the belief that money is just going to piss on you this week because some rich guy, you know, will allow it. Ha ha ha. You've never seen how the rich guy gets rich? No. He hoards it off your hard work and underpaying you. That's how he's getting it. He ain't pissing it down onto you. Otherwise, he wouldn't be rich and ripping you off. Jesus, no, he's lying.
We make decisions that allow people, for example, to keep more of their own money so that they can support their own family. And there is, you know, a lot that we can put together by way of policy before the next election, but we're not announcing all of that at the 10.
But is there a need for philosophical renewal, given where you're at?
Well, again, David, I think some of the attributes of the Liberal Party, frankly, are timeless and worth us re-prosecuting. I think in recent years, the Liberal Party's allowed itself to be defined by our opponents, and I think it's time for us to take that back, to stand up for what we believe in, whether it's trendy or not.
Oh, yeah, you know, the more deemings of the party, of course. You know, let hate reign. That's what they're after. They're not after the same politics as us. They're after making sure that their buddies are okay. Peter Dutton saying that they're traditionalists is basically like saying, hey, I just want to keep screwing over the public a little bit more. Let me do that. And if we keep doing it, maybe you won't notice. And if we just say we blame Labor for this, like you did in the last clip, which I'm not even shocked that they still have that line. It's funny, but I'm not shocked that they still have that, well, it's got to be Labor's fault. You know, it's an incredible thing that they're doing.
And some of that, I believe, is what the Australian public demand, particularly in our seats in outer metro areas and regional areas, and that's what we're going to do.
It doesn't sound like this morning you're signalling any shift, any change, any new direction.
Well, if you're asking me about the fundamentals of our party, they're not going to change. We have a proven track record when we're in government. We've just come off the back of a 10-year period.
You got a proven track record. Okay, rorts and all sorts. We're going to go with rorts and corruption. Robo-debt and rorts. Yeah. You got a legacy, all right, buddy. That's going to be a hard one to shake.
Federally, and if you look at the two parties, the Liberal Party's been much more successful in the modern era than Labor at a federal level. At a state level, it's a different story, particularly in Victoria, and that's something that we need to assess.
Okay, but any change on policy?
Well, if we've got new policies to take to the election, David, we'll do it in good time. We're not rushing out with policies at the 10-month mark that people will have no recollection of by the 3-year mark.
So, because they get plenty of time to lie about what they're going to do and then get in government and then do none of it.
Well, there's always a timing in this business, and now is not the right time to be out there putting out costed policies and changes to taxation policy or social policy otherwise. That'll come in due course.
Yeah. Another repugnant message from Dutton. Okay. So what ended up happening here? He is finally losing the whole narrative of what he's got going on. And this perfectly does it.
Third of the way.
Look, I think a few things. The government obviously is still in their honeymoon.
Peter, just a quick question. Do you know what a honeymoon is? I mean, I just got to ask the question because you just stated that part of the reason your mob, led by you, lost the unlosable seat of ASHTON was because the Labor Party are still in their honeymoon period, which is just so we get this straight, they're almost a third of the way, 33% of the way into their government period, give or take a month or so. So how the fuck do you calculate in your tiny, shiny head that is a honeymoon? You're fucking crazy, man.
I have had one test for my leadership, and that has been whether we can keep the party together. We've done that over the course of the last 10 months.
Now, we can't prove it, but we're pretty sure that the guy drinking the Corona or whatever it is in the background there, the little sycophant, is part of the Young Liberals. We're just saying. We can't prove it. We're just saying. Look at him go for that fucking Corona. I mean, fuck, is he in the desert or something? Is he turning into a camel? That's the Liberals for you.
Shine your back down behind me. Shine your.
That's the Liberals for you.
And the fact that they're calling it a historic loss shows you exactly how bad it is. Like, this is historic. And I mean, we know that this was a huge thing. We're fully aware of it. We see significant things are coming. They haven't yet. They clearly don't want to. But listen to this, Nikki Sava and the Liberal Party under Vote No, opposing everything all at once. Nikki has kind of come out against them, even though she very much helped the LNP and apologised for it and realised it was wrong. Now listen to her take on this.
Well, I do think that the problems for the Liberal Party go...
Oh, of course.
Well beyond leadership. I think there are major structural problems inside the Liberal Party. The base is very much out of sync, I think, with community sentiment. And I think you can put that down to the branch stacking that has been going on for years now. The parliamentary party, as it is now, is also out of sync with community sentiment. On top of that, in the year almost since the election, what we've seen from the opposition is this strategy of opposing everything, everywhere, all at once. And last night, it blew up in their faces. And so if they don't heed the message, at least from that last night, and I haven't seen anything yet to indicate that that has really penetrated, certainly they don't seem to think that there's any urgency about tackling what is wrong with the Liberal Party.
You haven't heard that? You didn't hear that just now from Peter Dutton at all?
I heard words like, yes, we'll have a look at what happened and then we'll have a review, but fundamentally no change. So I think, no, that's not a proper appreciation of what's happening and what is required. And if they keep listening to all those who say, you're not right-wing enough, you're not conservative enough, well, they're on the path to oblivion.
Raf.
See, now Nikki has got the right of it, I think. I think that she fully understands that you can't just win on just doing what you always did. And then saying, no, lurch further to the right when they clearly aren't popular in doing that. It's going to be a problem if they do that. So, in saying that, the Liberal Party really don't share any values with the public either. Listen to this take of the Liberal member, the Liberal candidate for ASHTON, how they presented the situation of that seat. You know, it's grotesque, and they should.
Simon Birmingham,
they should be called out for this, because to me it's repugnant that they get away with this sort of language.
Regular guest in this segment, Tina McQueen, because it involves her, the battle for the future of the Liberal Party, as one of our favourites in the news. Simon Birmingham He's a senator from South Australia, called Tina McQueen's resignation after she celebrated the political demise of moderate Liberals. I don't mind saying, Rashna, he's called for my resignation from the Liberal Party many times before I actually did resign. Should Tina go?
Well, what Ms McQueen said is she rejoiced in the loss of some of those seats because she didn't approve of the MPs that we had contesting the election there. And I think anyone who's rejoicing about losses for the Liberal Party anywhere in this country should think twice. Because let's be clear, in Victoria, where I am, we've lost Liberal strongholds like Higgins, like Kooyong, like Goldstein. And you know what that's left us with? 8 out of 39 seats in the House of Representatives in this state. I don't think there's anything to rejoice about there. And nor do I think that we want Teals, and in the case of Higgins, a Labor MP squatting in Liberal strongholds. The focus of the Liberal Party has to be on...
And that's where she comes undone. They're just squatting. They're not democratically elected. Why would you assume that? I mean, really? Her disingenuous nature to this, they're just squatting in their born to rule seats. That's how you want to present it? That's not wise. Let's take a moment to understand how idiotic it would be for you to accuse Labor of squatting in what was a Liberal Party held seat. Could you imagine the outrage if the left said something that repugnant? Could you just imagine the pile on that would happen for that? But she says it like it's just a natural thing to do. It's repugnant. I don't know how they live with themselves, but here we are.
Getting back those seats and making gains elsewhere in the outer suburbs, appealing to voters who we know share the values of the party, because anyone who's a true Conservative wants to see the Albanese government out, and the focus has to be on winning those seats back.
Yeah, okay, very well put, and I'm pleased to have an alternative view. I'll ask...
And that's how they do it. They do it by eating their own. They're not interested in actually... Tina McQueen was controversial to begin with. And so was Corey Bernardi. So all this posturing on how they would respond and the things that they've done, it's disingenuous to begin with. But to accuse Labor of squatting, oh, it's repugnant to its core. Okay. Apparently the Daily Telegraph doesn't know who, where is that? Oh, here we go. Apparently, I found it and it took me a little bit. The Daily Telegraph doesn't know who Chris Minns is. It's like this talking circle for them. So they will say, they will run an endless campaign of negative news cycles. And then if it doesn't go their way, they're like, well, really, it's an unknown candidate, because they never once ran a positive story. They didn't really do it fairly. And they never wanted them to win. So this is how they played off. Media Watch covers this perfectly. And I think that this is brilliant work by Media Watch.
And reporting alarming research, which apparently revealed
would-be Premier an unknown quantity.
Splashed across 2 pages inside the paper were the numbers behind that front-page scoop on the Minns identity crisis.
Out of the 30 people asked in Cogra, 60%, or 18 people, didn't recognise Chris Minns.
So, which polling company reached that remarkable conclusion? None. It was Telegraph journalists, armed with photos, asking people if they recognised the two would-be leaders. And despite the absurdity of promoting that to front-page news, the TV bulletins that night faithfully followed the telly's lead.
But new polling in the Labor leader's electorate claims the majority of his constituents don't know who he is.
Chris Minns is a mystery man in his own electorate.
Do you know who this man is?
No, I don't.
It's the leader of the opposition.
In the last 2 months, there's also been a flood of national and local stories suggesting that Minns could lose his admittedly marginal seat despite a statewide swing to Labor. And how did that prediction go?
Last night, the Premier-elect saw swings of nearly 20% his way.
With Minns winning a whopping 61% of the vote. Whoops. While the media was casting shade on the Labor leader and the party's chances, the polls had been predicting a Labor win for months. And the all-important final poll of the campaign from Newspoll was even clearer. The Sky's Kenny Heatley explained.
So the coalition up to down 2.5% to 45.5%, and Labor increasing the margin 2.5%, 54.5%.
Newspoll's forecast was a big win for Labor, with 10 seats changing hands and a new majority Labor government. So, how did TV News on election night describe the contest?
The Premier and opposition leader crisscrossed the city today, making final pitches in battleground seats, with predictions the vote will go down to the wire.
We may not know tonight. In fact, we may not know for days, with the result most likely on a knife edge.
10 and 9 weren't the only media who ignored that final poll and claimed the race was too close to call. While the ABC also forecast a close result, reporting on unsourced
predictions of tight race to lead state's 58th Parliament.
But despite all such predictions, it was not.
Libs turn to mincemeat.
And that's exactly why they shouldn't be allowed to pretend like they're telling you news. They're just regurgitating the circle jerk wagon. It's not news. It's just however they want you to think about it. Showing someone a picture with no context at all doesn't. You could show me a picture of someone and then go, well, do you know them? Do you? Like a celebrity? And I'm like, no, I don't follow celebrity news. Most people don't follow politics. That has nothing to do with what they do on election day. They hear things that are on the nose and they're like, well, I can't vote for that anymore. So now I've got to change my allegiance, kind of thing. And that's pretty much how it works, which is why what Rupert Murdoch did was so ruthless. But it turns out Friendly Geordies gets more votes, gets more views than Sky News now. So good on you, Friendly Geordies. You've gotten there. So now they're having this, inflection moment of, is Dutton a viable leader? Well, it turns out that these aren't exactly great ways to ask these questions. Labor claims ASHTON win, throwing Dutton's Liberal leadership into question as it happened. Okay, so there was non-stop rumours that Scott Morrison is going to pull the pin very soon too in the by-election of Cook. New South Wales is not a big issue for the Liberal Party as Victoria. So it's not quite the same concerns. But what this means for the Liberal Party at large, there are those who point to the 2007, where the Liberals were smashed at the polls. However, the Liberals turned that around in 2 elections. But this is different. The next big election is not until October 2024, and Queensland will go to the polls. The Palizak government is weighted down by controversy and how long it has in power. But so far, the LNP are not looking like that they can win it. But no, I don't agree with that writing. Anna has done a wonderful job here in Queensland, and the School and Roads project are a wonderful showing of that. For instance, personally, where I am, there are brand new schools being built. So there are over 450 schools across the state that are currently either being built or have been built, are in different stages of those works. Nearly every school has a form of an air conditioner and solar power. That's an important factor. That's going to come up a lot. And then you've got roads. Roads have been greatly improved under Labor. And hospital funding and a whole range of other things that they're attempting to fix. in the middle of a pandemic. Still, it's hard. There was a lot of stuff going on that created a lot of strain. There is still a lot of strain on our healthcare system. So it's taking a little bit to untangle. But by and large, I would say that we're in a reasonable, good position here. So, and the Liberal Party doesn't have a great candidate. I don't even know who it is. Of course, they're on the nose here so much because they fired like doctors and teachers and just defunded everything to a grotesque level. And I mean, that's the ultimate thing here. So when they're saying Queensland will next go to the polls in 2024, the Liberals are trying to use that as like well, we've still got one more to go. So why would you think that? Because the whole nation is red right now, except for Tasmania. And then federally, Labor have won. And because the Liberals don't look set to win the election in Queensland, they're trying to use it as like a buy stop, like well, we have this to look forward to, so why do we need to look internally at our mistakes? They've made some really, really big mistakes, and it's to the ALP's benefit right now that they keep Dutton where he is. I think his number's up, but we'll see. Okay, so next one I want to talk about is the South Australia Voice to Parliament. This was an amazing event. I think everybody should get an opportunity to view this 16-second clip. It is a show of strength, love, and it's something that I'd be very proud to show you. This isn't. This brings up a lot of emotion for me because this should be a basic human right, and yet it's treated as if it's something that's like a privilege. I don't understand how we're at this point, but here we go. You show me how we could reject any voice to Parliament given this turnout. Just take a look at that 16-second clip again. And all of these people, now think of it on a nationwide level. I'm not concerned about the hate winning. I'm concerned about the narrative, about the Conservatives' narrative around the voice, because they can do a lot of harm in a very short amount of time. What do I mean? I mean stuff like this. There seemed to be a gathering of hate. So this is why we can't have nice things. Look at the crowd the regions keep with their voting against their interests. Warren Mundine decided that the Vote No campaign, he went there at Tamworth. He went with Alan Jones, Barnaby Joyce, Senator Pauline Hanson, and Gary Johns, because, you know, why keep hate to just a couple of people? You're going to invite a handful. You know, I don't see how this is helpful at all. They're just horrible people. And I mean, the response to this is not great. They think that they're coming across great in doing this. They're not. It's small, it's awful, but it's those voices that always seem to be the bloody loudest, rather than the people who came out in SA to overwhelmingly support that action. Okay. So Moira Deeming seems to have gotten a second chance after John Prosciutto was like, no, we're so totally going to kick her out. You can't be associating with neo-Nazis. Why on earth would you be allowed to do that? You know, Liberals don't accept that as a first port of call. Why would they? And then after a 2-hour party room meeting, they're like, you know, let us stay. Why the hell not? And they've basically put themselves in this position because they're weak little cucked party. Because they don't want to do anything that benefits people. They want to keep the hate and the crap rolling around because they're a hateful, crappy little party. And that's shown nationwide and federally. And if we want to, you know, really stick it to them, we're going to keep showing them at a repeated moment how stupid they look. But sure, you keep doing you. So we'll see how that goes. Next, we're going to talk about Stuart Roberts. Okay. Take a look at Bill Shorten taking Stuart Roberts to task. Stuart Roberts is embroiled in a saga of parliamentary committee lobbying. Synergy 360. This is Brother Stewie has tried to say that nothing to see here, but Bill Shorten is having none of it. Today, reading out emails in Parliament, watch Stuart squirm as Bill lets forth. Could be time up for Stuart Roberts, as we're going to talk about the corruption watchdog coming down to view all of this.
Get him something tonight. Tomorrow at the Joint Committee for the Australian Commission for Law Enforcement Integrity, he'll be proposing the committee formally meets with UNICEF for a briefing on our work with the US government. There's another email between two of the owners of Synergy 360 on the 31st of October. They are excited at the big payday to be delivered by this undeclared special friendship with a member for Fadden. I quote, bloody amazing, considering we only officially launched on the 1st of June. Some companies don't even make a profit, let alone clear 100,000 in the first 3 to 4 months. This year isn't over, so let's aim for $1 million within the financial year. But this secret undisclosed trapdoor of influence offered UNICEF boundless commercial opportunities. UNICEF wrote to Mr Milo on the 25th of September 2017. I sent Stuart an email yesterday to follow up our meeting and request contact details for the appropriate person to arrange a presentation of the committee. The email continues. I also asked for his thoughts on delivering a similar presentation to the National Security Committee, the NSC. How does a multinational company form the presumption that they can talk to the heart of our national security architecture in Australia? The NSC is not some judge of a corporate beauty parade looking for contracts. Whatever the opposition leader and I think of each other, I know the opposition leader who served on the NSC does not see the NSC as some sort of trailer boot market on a Sunday where the security of the nation has to listen to a beauty parade of commercial vendors, not with a relationship not disclosed by the member for Fadden.
Concluded.
Now that is why we need the corruption watchdog, which brings me to my favourite part of the evening. Corruption watchdog set up. So here we go. Paul Brenton appointed to lead the National Anti-Corruption Commission. Paul Brenton has been appointed the Commissioner for the National Anti-Corruption Watchdog, which will begin its operation from the middle of the year. Now, if Stuart Roberts responds to this, is going to be interesting. Why did Stewie, Rolex watches and all that you haven't handed back? I mean, there's nothing dodgy about your internet filings or, pieces of land or anything, Is there anything that you want to disclose now? I mean, if I was him, I'd be making a very hasty retreat from Parliament. But I mean, the National Security Committee, he is trying to get his buddies contracts. That looks like corruption. If they were to make $1 million in a year, hell, so he could get them to the higher echelons of national security. I mean, this thing is going to explode, Stewie. I would have bailed by now, buddy, but you seem to not realise the walls are closing in and the rots are over. See, this is what happens when you're stupid. Criminals are by and large stupid, Very rarely do you have a bright spark criminal. Now, when one is an elected one, I dare say that's not exactly a wise move. Looks a little bit crimey, Now, these allegations, if they turn out to be true and Mr. Shorten's right, you might be in a spot of bother here, buddy. If I was you, I wouldn't even be sitting in the next parliamentary sitting time. I would be making a quick and hasty response like, I have family matters to deal with. See, now that's a typical response of the Liberal Party. They've always got family matters. I mean, remember Mike Bairds, had something going on with the family, and less than 3 months later, he cozied up to a bank. Oh, what about Chris Pine? Nah, I've got a few family stuff to deal with. I'm not going to recontext and re-go for the next election. He gets a contract for working at a subcommittee, the subs deal. Yeah, we made a bit of coin out of that not long after I left Parliament. See, when you're stupid and you leave a breadcrumb like that, it can't look too great, buddy. If I was you guys, I would be looking at where your place sits. But, you're stupid. You're going to sit there and you're going to pretend like you didn't do it. It's going to show that you did do it. And, we'll just see who's a better victor in this one, hey? I think this is going to be funny. The thing is that if you were smart, you never would have done it. You would have actually represented the constituents who voted you into these seats. But you got greedy and stupid. And this is why I think that UK isn't the only country that has issues like this. I mean, play stupid games, you're winning a stupid prize, hey, Stewie? I'd like to know if you and your wife handed back over those Rolex watches that you thought were fake, eh? I think this is all funny. I wouldn't if they were still in government, but now to watch them actually get an inquiry going into this crap, that's funny. I don't think it's funny that you did it. I think it's funny that it's unraveling. He looked very uncomfortable with the whole process. So, we'll see what that guy's going to do when the corruption watchdog gets going. Turns out Garth Ward won. Now, he has been banned. He's predicted to win the Kiama seat despite hints of a parliament suspension. So, I don't know how this is going to work. We're going to have to see what happens when parliament sits. He's facing very serious criminal charges involving children, a very abhorrent crime that, by the sounds of it, he has victims. If everything is to be believed. And he was still stupid enough to run. I dare say we're going to see a conviction soon in relation to Garth Ward. Okay, was justice perverted for Brittnay Higgins? Okay. AFP Commissioner Reece Kershaw colluded with Rupert Murdoch and Bruce Lehman lawyers to undermine a rape trial. Below is a letter from the ACT Director of Public Prosecution, Shane Drumgold, sent it to the ACT Chief Police Officer, Neil Gornick, outlining evidence of corrupt police trying to stop rape charges against Bruce Lehman and the police colluding with Lehman's lawyers. During the rape trial, the ACT Policing Community Policing arm of the AFP, the letter sets out to the police conspiracy to help Lehman, which has led to the Board of Inquiry into the criminal justice system of the Australian Capital Territory that has been set up to investigate the police attempts to cover up the Brittnay Higgins alleged rape. Now, these people were stupid enough, because their buddies are part of Parliament, to fuck around and find out. I have no doubt that they did it. No doubt at all. They were leaking information about poor Brittnay while she was in a mental health facility. She was seeking help. And they leaked those details. The people who were supposed to be guarding her leaked these details. The letter set out that the below letter is a must read. It sets out a background for the inquiry, which will be explosive. So this means that they're going to look into the people that leaked this information. Like I told everybody when that trial took place, something was afoot here that we weren't privy to. But my God, when we get to see it, it's going to be explosive. The very fact that the AFP is involved in this tells you just how grimy Scott Morrison was and how many hands he was willing to grease to make sure Bruce Lehman never saw a day in jail. And, you know, everything from Scott Morrison down needs to come undone for this. Brittnay was robbed of a decent trial. And then the media went on this, well, we know where she is, we know what she's doing, and we get to talk about what she was wearing, a jacket, more precisely, and how out of touch that is with the general public, because that's what matters on the night that you're raped, what jacket you're wearing. Thank you, MSN. I didn't know that part was so damn important, not the woman being allegedly raped. Thank you. I'm so glad you can tell me what the victim was wearing. You idiots. What did you think was going to happen? Everything from Rupert Murdoch playing a role in this to the AFP being now investigated for this. Oh, yeah. Plus the parliamentarians that took part. Yeah, you had Maurice Payne had a carpet cleaner in rather than having police investigate this crime. There's no coming back from that. There just isn't. So if you did it, then you were stupid enough to play a role in that, Miss Higgins can sue the bejeebus out of you. Not just that, you're going to think twice, you're going to lose your jobs. Do you think Scott Morrison's going to care that you can never get a job in this field again? You were stupid enough to be entrusted with the national security in being part of the AFP. You had a real cushy job and you could have just done it the way you're supposed to do it. But no, Scott Morrison called you, you know, got to do a good job for your buddy. Your mate called. May as well make things go away, not actually do our jobs. It's repugnant. So we're going to see how that one turns out. And in another moment, I'm not going to tell you what was in Mark Latham's tweet. My daughter and I consulted each other on this before I did it. It was homophobic. And it even got to the point where Pauline Hanson's like, Yeah, you kind of busted this one, and I think you should apologise. And why aren't you answering my calls? And then she did this fake, oh no, we really are sorry. We're not homophobic, horrible people. Also, this alludes to a sex act, one that heterosexuals are more likely, heterosexuals engage in, and sort of make an insinuation that it's just that it's just the gay community engaging in that kind of sex act is repugnant, and it's a slur, you know. I don't know why he's allowed to even sit where he sits. It'll be a long time before he should be struck off for this sort of stuff. But Pauline Hanson will keep him, you know, no matter how gross he gets, no matter how many taxi men he assaults. Okay. Constitutional law expert says sacking is unlikely. Gay men in New South Wales could have grounds to bring a complaint of homosexual vilification against Mark Latham over a tweet that saw him labelled as a bigot by the Premier. Broad independent MP Alex Green, at which two tiers legal experts say. The University of Constitutional Law expert George Williams said that the One Nation state leader was unlikely to be sacked from his job. The state's new Premier, Chris Minns, labelled Latham a bigot and praised Greenwich poise and resolve in wake of Thursday's tweet. They're vile and shameful comments, and I think he's revealed himself to be a bigot, Minns said on Friday. But here's the thing. On his Twitter, there was like, oh no, he said what we're all thinking. You mean horrible people were like, yeah, cheering it all on. This is wonderful. No. So, in his dark and grotesque moments, he has people that are like, hey, that's awesome. Which tells you that if even Pauline Hanson's like, hey, that's a bit on the nose, buddy, you went too far. So, I don't think that this is going to make a good ending to Mark Latham's career. Rather than bow out as just a Labor loser, and now he's going to come out as a One Nation horrible bigot. Horrible, horrible bigot. The last thing I want to show you is corruption in the UK. There is a question being asked, is UK the most corrupt, and what were they able to do? Well, take a look at this. UK Tories are arguably the most corrupt, greedy MPs in liberal democracy. Here they are captured in a sting operation. Cringe as you watch them tell a malt co how much money they want to take on a second job for a foreign corporation.
So we were wondering, do you have a daily rate at the moment?
I do, yes. It's 10,000 sterling.
This is Seoul, home to the headquarters of Hanson Consulting, a South Korean company with plans to expand into the UK and Europe. And this is Soo-yeon Lee, the company's Vice President of External Affairs. She's trying to recruit British MPs to join the company's International Advisory Board and has been conducting job interviews on Zoom.
Can you see me?
Oh, I can't see you yet.
There we go.
Hello?
Oh, hello there. Very nice to meet you. Good morning. How are you?
Great. Hi, how are you? What these MPs don't know is that Hanson Consulting doesn't actually exist. It's been entirely made up by led by donkeys. It has no headquarters, there's no advisory board, no clients, no money, and no staff. Oh, and Soo-yeon Lee is an undercover reporter.
I'm Anthony Barnett, and for many years I've been investigating the financial interest of politicians of all main parties. I was approached by Led by Donkeys to help them conduct an experiment after the recent scandals over MPs and their second jobs. In the middle of a cost of living crisis, when people need their MPs more than ever, would a serving member of Parliament still consider taking a job furthering the interests of a foreign company on top of their constituency duties? And how much would they want to be paid?
Second jobs have been in the news a lot in recent years. The Owen Paterson scandal shook the House of Commons. Former Attorney General Sir Geoffrey Cox faced criticism for earning hundreds of thousands of pounds working as a lawyer. and then Matt Hancock took a six-figure sum to go into the jungle. Even Rishi Sunak said he was outraged at that, throwing Hancock out of the Conservative Parliamentary Party.
I've been very clear that I was very disappointed with the decision he made. I think there's lots for us all to be getting on with at this time, and that's what I think people should.
So here's the sting. They set up a fake company pretending that they're offering people legitimate second jobs where they could be paid to basically push for a corporation. Where they could use all of their powers as an MP to do it. So take a look.
Be focused on.
It's not against parliamentary rules for MPs to have second jobs or third jobs, and there are no restrictions on how much they can earn. In fact, some claim MPs having second jobs brings important experience into the House of Commons. But a clear majority of the public think it's wrong for serving MPs to also work for private companies. And while successive governments have promised action on MPs' outside interest, little appears to have changed. Dozens of MPs now earn lucrative fees from second jobs, and as long as they don't lobby for those that pay them or provide paid parliamentary advice, they're not breaking any rules. And maybe that's the problem.
Now Led by Donkeys wanted to know if the recent backlash around MP second jobs had changed anything.
There was only one way to find out.
First, we needed a name for our fake business. We chose Hanson Consulting from South Korea. We knocked up a website describing ourselves as a boutique advisory firm providing tailored and holistic consultancy services, whatever that means. And then we added some testimonials from non-existent clients who wax lyrical about how brilliant we are at doing whatever it is that we do. Then we paid a few £100 for a fake virtual office, and just like that, Hanson Consulting was formed. It just needed some British MPs for its International Advisory Board. We scrutinised the Parliamentary Register where MPs list their financial interests, and we examined their track records. We approached 20 MPs in total. Because the vast majority of MPs' outside income is earned by Conservative members of Parliament, we contacted 16 Tories, 2 Labour, 1 Lib Dem and 1 Independent MP. We emailed asking if they were interested in joining our international...
That is a really good sign that they only thought to contact 2 Labour people, but they chose not to take part in this.
Advisory Board from April as we expanded into the UK and Europe. We said we wanted them to attend 6 board meetings a year in the UK, Europe and South Korea, in person or virtually, and to be available for one-off meetings. And we made it clear we wanted them for their political backgrounds, to provide expert insight to help our clients navigate the shifting political, regulatory and legislative frameworks in the UK and Europe. We sent the emails to their parliamentary offices, sat back and waited. 12 MPs didn't get back to us, 2 politely declined, 1 expressed interest and went quiet, but 5 were interested enough to find time in their diaries for an exploratory meeting.
And soon enough, we were conducting job interviews with some well-known faces keen to work for our fake foreign company.
We would like to talk about arrangements of fees. I mean, do you have a daily rate?
Yeah, I mean, a yearly rate.
Yes.
I mean, I would say as an MP, obviously I don't need to earn a king's ransom, but I would do anything less than for about $10,000 a month.
Dollars or pounds?
Well, pounds sterling.
Sterling's okay. 10,000 pounds a month.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds.
What sort of ballpark are you looking at?
Actually, we were looking into. I mean, this is just a number that's in front of me. I put it down in my memo, so I'm just looking into it. So actually, we were looking into 8,000 to 12,000 pounds a day.
Yeah. Okay. How many days a month is that?
I mean, we have 6 board meetings, but it's just that.
Okay.
There will be more days back and forth. So.
Yeah, we're not a million miles off. Yeah. Okay. I mean, 8 to 10,000 a day. That's fine. But I'm thinking if there are 12 days that I do a year, that's 12. That's the numbers we can work. We can work with the numbers. But yeah, 8 to
hourly rates. Maybe. I mean, do you have any number in mind that we were thinking?
Well, around 1,500.
1,500?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a daily rate in mind at this case?
I don't know about a daily rate. I suppose seeing your approach and the kind of expectations you'd have, I was thinking something like £60,000.
60,000 pounds. Oh.
As an annual rate.
Okay.
If you think that's far too cheap, let me know.
Over the next few days, join me and Led by Donkeys as we reveal what those 5 senior MPs said in their job interviews with Hanson Consulting. Interviews in which they expressed interest in becoming well-paid board members and attending company meetings in the UK, Europe and South Korea.
Sir Gavin Williamson turned us down during the job interview, but the 4 other MPs had all been happy to go forward to the next stage.
Well, particularly if I'm going to Korea, I'd expect to be compensated for that.
Yes, definitely. We will arrange all the compensations and all that. So
yeah, I mean, I'm 10,000 a day, and I'd invoice it each. I wouldn't expect a regular retainer, but we could do it that way as well.
So £10,000 a day.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal that they were able to do what they did. I would love for a similar experiment to be conducted here to see just how they responded to this kind of scrutiny. I personally think it's repugnant that they get any positions like this. That's me, that they're allowed to have second jobs and work against the public's better interests in doing so, being lobbyists for different companies. Okay, that is all from me tonight. I want to thank everyone for coming out. I had a wonderful time with you, and same time next week. Yes, I'll catch you next week. Thanks, guys. Bye.